Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, it's Cynicalex. And with 2019 coming to a close, I thought now's the perfect time to do a final Marvel Future Fight tier list before we go into the new year, 2020, start getting new updates, and then, things start getting thrown into whack again with new characters being introduced, new uniforms, and possibly, hopefully, crossing my fingers, new game modes. Now, I want to start off with something a little bit unique this time around. I want to highlight, before we look at the tier list, 3 characters that I think sort of transcend the list in a way. These characters just are amazing in one way or another, and I feel like the tier list just doesn't really capture everything that they can do. It's not to say that they deserve to be on a higher tier or they deserve to be upgraded in some kind of way or given some sort of label or something like that, but it's just, there's just some sort of je ne sais quoi about them that makes them so good. And this time around we're highlighting, well, this time, the first time around, we're highlighting Apocalypse, Sabretooth, and Cable. Sorry ladies, only the fellas this time. But now let's take a look at the tier list and how it shakes out, where characters end up for this end of the year snapshot of all of the characters. Now keep in mind, this list is 100% my own opinion. This is just what I think of the game and how I feel that characters shake out. There's also a tier down here called Toilet Tier that we don't really talk about too much. And then basically everything else is pretty straightforward, but I'll remind you guys, for those of you that don't remember, so only the characters in the Omega, Mythic, and Legendary tier are ranked among each other, but they're only ranked among each other in terms of their class or their typing. So I am comparing Gwenpool to the rest of the speed types in Legendary tier when I say that she's better than them, but she's obviously worse than all of the Mythic and Omega tier speed types. But I am in no way saying that Gwenpool is better than Colossus, better than Weapon Hex and Invisible Woman and Dr. Voodoo and so on and so forth. Same thing goes over here. I'm saying that I think Quicksilver is better than Deadpool, but I'm not saying that Deadpool is better than Apocalypse, who's better than Jean Grey, who's better than Doctor Strange. Silver Surfer's not the worst one here. He's just the worst out of these 3, but he's in the Omega tier, so he's in very nice company. Secondly, of course, we've got all of the different buffs here, and this is sort of self-explanatory. I have gone ahead and added a lot of additional godly strikers now with the new striker change. So that's going to be one of the big themes of this tier list, is how the striker change has really benefited a lot of characters, but it's also hurt some characters on the other hand as well. So it's an interesting topic to discuss, because certain characters, and maybe start thinking about them now, I'm not going to tell you who, but certain characters are actually losing value because what they could do as a unique property is no longer unique, which makes them a lot less special and makes their power a lot less special because it's a lot easier to get. So strikers have definitely got a huge buff. However, here's the thing. Even though Weapon Hex, Rachel Summers are probably the de facto 1 and 2 best strikers in the game, if you just had to choose one of each, one mind control, one all defense down, they don't interrupt or interact with each other in a negative way, but they didn't gain any points. They didn't move anywhere on the tier list. And that's just because I think they're exactly where they need to be. I don't want to overemphasize the value of strikers. You still need a character there to attack for the strikers to do their job. You still need a character that can punch really hard in order for that all defense down to actually matter. So despite what I've said in the past, and despite the fact that I do still think that the striker changes does make World Boss a lot easier, and it does make World Boss easier, it doesn't necessarily make certain characters better than others now that they're good strikers, if that makes any sense. Like Weapon Hex doesn't suddenly become better than Strife or better than Emma Frost just because she is the best striker in the game. She's only the striker. She doesn't exist. Her value is 0 if you don't have characters on the team attacking to take advantage of her striker ability. Just as a striker, she doesn't do anything. You need that punch there. So I wanted to make that clear. Now, without further ado, let's jump into, and let's start with the Omega tier. Apocalypse, jumping way up from the bottom of Legendary tier all the way up to Omega tier. And he's in Omega tier for the simple reason that he's just so tanky now. Even with a bad PvP build, I illustrated, and other people will be able to illustrate as well, that he can do PvP. So that is automatically grounds for consideration into the Omega tier, and then he's just outstanding in PvE. He's one of the best PvE characters in the game. Mind control, mind resistance down, huge damage, huge synergy with striker bonuses, self buffs, all kinds of stuff. He is just an absolute powerhouse. Deadpool, I bolded him just because we got the new Holiday Lady Deadpool, and although everyone's talking about Stage 99 Cull Obsidian, Stage 99 Proxima, that doesn't really move Deadpool's value up in my opinion, because he's still, like, he's more dominant for World Boss, but it doesn't really matter. There's not a, I mean, you might think there is, but I honestly don't think there's a huge difference between being able to do Stage 85 of Proxima and doing Stage 99. You're already in the top 1% of clears to begin with. Whereas Quicksilver still retains his top spot because he is probably the most consistent non-banned speed character to kill Jean Grey, every single time, and he's just such a headache to deal with in PvP, and he still has insane power for PvE. Not to mention the fact that he's still leagues ahead of Deadpool for any kind of giant boss raid content. Moving along, we got some new additions to the Mythic tier. Of course, Sabretooth makes his case with this new uniform, and he's right over there. And Sabretooth is one of the characters that I'm just like, he's so good. At tier 2, he's so good, but I just can't put him ahead of Captain America, and it burns, and it hurts. But, yeah, that's just the way that it is. But as a tier 2 character with just a CTP of energy, he's probably the best tier 2 character in the game for a combat type, minus maybe Apocalypse. Like, he's probably better than Namor as a tier 2 with this new uniform. He's that good. I mean, he's into the stage 80s. Even before the Striker change, he was going berserk in the stage 70s. So we know he's got the juice 100%. So Sabretooth, very, very good. Absolutely deserves his place here, even though he doesn't really have much PvP value. And guys, Mr. Fantastic, I don't know, some of you guys are riding the Mr. Fantastic hype train. Show me Mr. Fantastic content. You guys are all saying I'm undervaluing, I'm sleeping on Mr. Fantastic. Okay, wake me up. I don't see any Mr. Fantastic content to tell me that he's fantastic. I don't see any at all. Okay, he needs a maker costume or something. Anyways, moving along, Cable. Another character here that I just have a hard time really pinning down his value, but he rises to second best in the Mythic tier for Blast types, and it's absolutely valid. His PvE performance, his GBR performance, his ABX performance, his World Boss performance is undeniably good. Self-healing, insane all defense down now to go with everything else, and he does it all with a CTP of energy. He's an absolute monster with this new uniform, and he absolutely deserves to be here, and he is one of the characters that has benefited tremendously from the new Striker changes. They have buffed Cable to a new height, and they have really covered up a lot of his inconsistency with his own procs and with just standing there and blasting, because if you can have those Strikers coming in constantly to mind control, the blasting becomes less of a weakness and more of a strength. So they actually turned his weakness into a strength. Now on the flip side, I did knock Scarlet Witch down a few points because her unique ability, being able to mind control, being able to apply all defense down with her 4th skill when you play as her, is no longer that unique, because instead of having to play with Scarlet Witch against Ebony Maw, I can just bring Rachel Summers and Weapon Hex, and I get way better results. I get the mind control, I get 100% all defense down instead of 40%, and I get increased damage received, which is the same thing Scarlet Witch has. So I get all of that in one package, and I don't have to use Scarlet Witch. I don't have to contend with her annoying rotation. Am I proccing on 5? Am I proccing on 3? I can just go and play the game with any other character. If they do any kind of energy or elemental damage, I am going to uppercut Ebony Maw into the moon, because that's how good the Rachel Summers Weapon Hex combo is. So Scarlet Witch has taken a hit because, you know, her value is now represented in other characters as well as her value used to be for herself. And so that consistency now is reflected in other characters. So you don't even need to build up Scarlet Witch technically. For Strikers for World Boss. But she's still a godly Striker, don't get me wrong. She's still very, very good. And then Negasonic makes her case just below Scarlet Witch, because on top of being an amazing Striker a la Scarlet Witch, Negasonic is amazing as a standalone character. She hits really hard, and she's very consistent, self-healing, very high defenses, very, very good, undeniably good. Unfortunately, Gambo, had to highlight him here, almost want to kick him off the Mythic tier. Gambit has hurt a lot from this Striker change, because being able to apply his own all defense down makes it so that it's not really that relevant to have Weapon Hex and other Strikers, not to mention the fact that he applies his own all defense down right away at the beginning, so you actually don't have a chance for the Strikers to come in and set a higher bar. So whatever his bar that is set ends up being the bar that the strikers will set at. So there's sort of a negative interaction between his all defense down being applied and other strikers all defense down being applied. Because he can't take advantage of that, he becomes worse. He's still very good, but he's definitely taking a hit. Slapstick comes in brand new. He just does it all. He's not, you know, the best character in the game, but I would say he's as good or better than Ghost Panther for PvE. He's got PvP value, so he beats Victorious there. He revives. He's pretty much got everything. He just doesn't have enough to hang with these two big boys over here to really make enough noise. Moving along into the legendary tier, Gwenpool just comes out at the top because she has so much damage. I might be overvaluing her a little bit here. Okay, I will say that. I think I'm overvaluing her a little bit, but we have to remember she's level 60. So I feel like it's a little bit of an unfair comparison for her to be grouped in with these other characters here. Like even Hawkeye, Ronin, and Winter Soldier, they're level 70. They can get to gear 25. So I think it really does give us an incomplete picture. So I'd rather overvalue her a little bit, given that I've already shown that she can do a really high PvE content, rather than, let's say I undervalue her. Let's say I move Gwenpool down to like here, okay? And then people will get a confusing sort of contradictory answer. Like, well, Cynicalex, you said she was really good for World Boss, but now you're not putting her above Hawkeye for World Boss, but she was doing higher stages without a CTP. And then I would have to sort of, you know, try and explain the nuance there. So I think overvaluing her here, because I'm telling you that I'm overvaluing her, makes more sense given what I've already shown. But just keep in mind that my ranking of the character does not mean that I'm endorsing what Marvel Future Fight does as far as selling this uniform for $30. This is just where the character lands in terms of their power level. This is just an objective value that I'm assigning the character. Not saying that I'm like gung-ho for lots of paywall uniforms, okay? And then we got Domino. Domino does move up, but honestly, the speed class is very top-heavy. Once you get down to about here, everything from here down is a big fall down. Like Miles Morales, Electro. Yeah, this is not to say the character is fantastic. The character's good. But she's definitely not, like, you know, you get into the upper echelons here, and this is where things start to get really good. Domino's just not quite there. Colossus, however, I moved him to the top of combat class because I just feel like he's everywhere for PvP. He's literally everywhere. He absolutely deserves more recognition, and so I moved him up one spot over Minerva, even though both Minerva and Molten Man are now really great strikers. All defense down for her, paralysis for him. Gorilla Man comes in brand new. There's not really much to say. Not a sexy character. He's just good. He self-heals, good damage, short cooldowns, and honestly, like the speed class, the combat class is super top-heavy. Once you get to, like, here, there's a huge drop-off. And honestly, Agent Venom's not that good. The Blast class remains unchanged. I moved Dr. Voodoo up an entire tier because with the new Striker changes, again, another benefit, his leadership has become so invaluable for pushing characters all defense down to new heights, especially Deadpool, especially Sabretooth, to the point where he's absolutely a huge value, not to mention the fact that now he is a mind control striker, which does also increase his value. I also moved Iron Hammer up to the top because he is an all defense down striker. Dr. Voodoo is a mind control striker, by the way. Moved Blue Marvel down. Yeah, I did a test with him. His damage was just pathetic. He doesn't deserve to be in the legendary tier whatsoever. Nova barely deserves to be here. Same thing with Anti-Man. They're sort of hanging on to their old vestiges. They're going to need a rework to stay in this class, in this tier, long term. The rest is really unchanged. Sadly, we didn't see any major reworks for any of these characters here, so nothing happened in Rare, Advanced, and Normal, except for characters making out of the slums and the ghetto of Marvel Future Fight. So, of course, Groot rises up from Rare into Heroic. I rank him just above Wave because, although his Striker ability activates when you get hit, it is a consistent heal. So you can use Groot in synergy with characters that you want to take damage, like Mr. Fantastic or Sabretooth. Although Sabretooth heals himself, Mr. Fantastic doesn't. And so you'll take that damage, you'll accumulate more damage to hit back, like with Mr. Fantastic's new third skill, Rubber Arm or Rubber Punch. And then Groot, because he's a when attacked striker, will drop a bunch of heals, and then you can just heal yourself up. So not as good as Venom, but definitely good enough to be at the bottom of Heroic, whereas Venom is at the top of Heroic now with this new Striker change. So that's how things shake out. Quite a lot has changed in Marvel Future Fight, especially in the top couple of tiers, because of the striker change. What do you think it means for the future of the game? Do you like the striker change? Have you gotten used to it? Do you still notice it? How are you getting along with it? Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the last tier list for 2019. What does 2020 hold? Will these tier lists even look the same 6 months from now? I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.